My name's Brittney Chambers. I am the owner of CBC Therapeutic Horseback Riding Academy, LLC. I train horses. I give lessons. I work with my dad super closely. We rehab a lot of horses. We train horses together. I also do a therapy component for those who need therapy. I teach horsemanship classes. I have an online academy. So my main goal that I do is try to give everyone the well-rounded experience of horses, not just riding. So we do groundwork. Communication is what we're going to be talking about today. I do mainly my goal when I work with clients and students is to make sure that everything comes around full circle. You have the riding part, you have your groundwork part, you know how to work with your horse, talk with your horse, learn the equine language of horses. So that is what we are going to talk about today. I have a presentation for you that's about 20 minutes long, and then I believe after we will open up for questions and discussions, right, Abriana, Caitlin? And I'm not sure, did you want people to put their questions in the chat?
Yeah, so if you come up with questions while Brittney is speaking, you can put them in the chat box and we'll address them at the end. If you want to remain anonymous, you can send them to me directly, privately, and then I can share them at the end. Or at the end, you can turn your video on and unmute yourself and ask her directly.
Perfect. So also just a little bit about me. In the horse world, I've been riding horses my entire life. I formerly had the academy for 5 years now. So I have grew up with them. I love them, everything like that. I also did have a professional life in mental health. So I have an associate's in social science, a bachelor's in alcohol and drug counseling, and a master's in criminal justice administration. And I've worked with a lot of youth and adults that may have mental health issues. So when it comes to communication, I definitely know how to communicate with a lot of different people and know different strategies and techniques. So I didn't get too specific because I didn't want to go too long, but definitely if you have questions, put them in the chat. I mean, I'm even open to you emailing them to me after if we run out of time. So let's go ahead and I will share the video, and after I will come back on and then we can get our discussion started. Communication, the trainer, rider, and horse dynamic. So if communication between all three of these parties is not effective and does not work, it will be very hard to accomplish your goals, and then there would be some positive and negative emotions that go along with it. So I found this quote and I actually really liked it, and it says, lack of communication leads to lack of trust, which in turn leaves room for doubt. And the author of this quote is unknown, but if you look, one of the main words is communication. And when it shows that there is a lack of communication, there's a lack of trust, and it leaves room for doubt, which are two negative emotions that we don't want to experience. So I feel that this quote really does show the importance of effective communication. So I'm just going to go over a few definitions that I feel are very important as we go along in this discussion, and I promise it'll all tie back in together. I just want to give us a solid base. So the first definition I'm going to go over is communication, and the exact definition of communication is the imparting or exchanging of information or news. The second definition is of effective communication, and effective communication is the process of exchanging ideas, thoughts, knowledge, and information such that the purpose or intention is fulfilled in the best possible manner. The third and final definition that I'm going to cover is objective, and an objective is a thing aimed at or sought, a goal. And this is super important because I feel through all of this, we should all have objectives and goals that we are trying to reach, whether it be within our personal selves. If you are a rider, you can have certain things that you want to improve on your riding. If you have a horse, you could have certain objectives and goals for your horse to accomplish. If you're a trainer, you can have certain things that you want your horses, your clients' horses, or your riders or students that you have to achieve. And a big part of reaching those objectives is effective communication. So let's talk a little bit about what ineffective communication causes. So ineffective communication causes anxiety, it can cause fear, it can cause doubt, low self-confidence, and anger. And this is the exact opposite of what we need to be successful equestrians. If you have anxiety while you're riding, you won't be thinking clearly. You'll be focused on all the bad things that can happen versus what is going on in the present, what your horse is doing in the present. You know, if you have anxiety because of the horse that you're on, you're riding the horse that is in your head and not the horse that is currently underneath you. So anxiety kind of clouds our thought, and that is not a good feeling to have. And it kind of goes hand in hand in fear. If you are afraid of what's going to happen, your mind isn't really clear enough to think about all the good things that can happen if you are riding in fear. Because when you're afraid, you're just trying to learn how to survive. So that doesn't give your mind enough room to learn and to take in what's needed to improve, because fear is just causing you to survive. If you have doubt, that is another thing that can harm us in regards to riding or working around horses. Doubt, you know, it's just not having enough confidence in yourself, goes hand in hand with low self-confidence. You have to be confident enough to move forward. Yes, we have to move outside of our comfort zone, but just staying in that doubt and just not having enough confidence to move forward, you know, you do have to kind of reach out there and stretch yourself out a bit. And with all of this, it can cause anger, because if you have anxiety, fear, doubt, low self-confidence, it can hinder your training with your horses or your personal riding. And if you're a trainer yourself, if you have all of these things, it's going to be hard to get your students and your horses better. So this is exactly what can lead to anger, is not improving. But again, if you don't have that effective communication that causes the anxiety, fear, doubt, low self-confidence, and all of that will add up to anger, you know, it's really not going to help you become a successful equestrian. And it can also hinder you in your personal life, because you might go home at night and start thinking about all the stuff that you could have done different. But really, a lot of this can be the root of communication. So now let's look at the causes of effective communication. It causes collectiveness, bravery, certainty, self-confidence, and success. And this is exactly what we need in order to be successful equestrians. So I just wanted to touch on real quick some of the strategies in order to have for effective communication. And this is just kind of in general, whether it be with your horse or with people in our everyday lives. So the strategies for effective communication is focus on the issue and not the person or the horse. So sometimes you might not get along with that person, you might not know that person, but if you focus on the issue and how to solve that issue and not take it personal, most likely that issue will be resolved. You want to use affirming responses. So you want to make sure that it's yes or no, and be reassuring and reaffirming. That is what you want. You want to be flexible, because you have to kind of meet in the middle sometimes. You might not want to be 100% yes or no. You might not see eye to eye with that other individual or the horse. So you kind of have to be flexible. And make sure that you're genuine and not manipulative. If you're manipulative, then that just means you're trying to get what you want and you're not trying to meet that other person halfway. You also want to make sure that you empathize, but you don't detach. So you want to make sure that you understand where the other person is coming from, but don't totally just blow them off. Or with the horse, you got to understand, if you're working with a horse that has strong emotions and isn't afraid to show them, try to see it from their point of view and where they're coming from. So it might give you a better understanding of how to approach it. So now these are just a few strategies I think will help to finish the base of our conversation. And this is just some strategies for effective communication while teaching. So if you are a trainer and you are training horses and students or other riders to ride, one thing that is so important to know is to know your student, whether it be a human or a horse, to know your student's best learning style. For humans, or if you're teaching a student, I should say, do they learn best visually? Do you have to get on the horse and show them what you are trying to teach them? Is it auditory? Can you just explain to them what you want them to do and they get it? Is it reading or writing? Do you have to write it down? Do you have to give them a book to show them and demonstrate what you want from them? Or is it kinesthetic? Is it throwing them out there and say, hey, this is how you do it, it's hands-on? What's your horse's best learning style? Do they need a firm hand and a lot of correction, or do you need to be soft and reassuring with them? Remember, horses can have the same feelings as us. If they don't understand what we're trying to say, they can feel anxiety and fear and have doubt and low self-confidence to become angry because they don't understand what we're trying to teach them. Same exact thing as humans, and if we have effective communication, again, your student and your horse will have collectiveness, bravery, certainty, self-confidence, and success. So you have to make sure that you can speak the equine language and the human language if you are teaching, okay? Because you want to make sure that you set your students up for success, whether your student is a horse or a rider. So now let's dive deep into the dynamics of all the little different parts. So we have a solid base for our conversation. So the first dynamic is trainer to rider and rider to horse. Our second dynamic is rider/trainer to horse. Moving forward, I'll just say the rider to horse. And then there is also the horse to the rider. So let's look at dynamic number 1 for effective communication. Let's look at this as if it were a lesson setup. So you have your trainer and your rider and your horse all in the arena. If the trainer communicates effectively to the rider and the rider translates that communication over to the horse of what wants to be accomplished, then you will have your success. Then that is effective communication. The trainer knows exactly how to talk to the rider because they know how they best learn. The rider understands the trainer, and then the rider can communicate that to the horse. So that is super important. If that's effective, then you will have your collectiveness, your bravery, your certainty, your self-confidence, and your success. Now let's look at ineffective communication. This can go a couple different ways. So let's start with the first way. If the trainer does not communicate effectively to the rider, it stops there. And I put a little circle above the rider because it can stop. If the rider does not understand what the trainer is saying, the rider will have a hard time translating that to the horse, and the horse will not understand. So there will be 2 X's on that side. So that just won't work. The next one is if the trainer communicates effectively to the rider and the rider does not effectively communicate to the horse, then it's not going to work out either. And if the horse isn't listening while you're trying to get it to do what you want them to do, then that can cause your anxiety, your fear, your doubt, your low self-confidence, and your anger. So as a trainer myself, I think all trainers should be responsible to know the horse that the rider is on and to help that rider guide that horse through. Or you can teach that rider the best way to say, hey, this horse works like this horse works good like that, doesn't like this or likes that, just to help put back some of that effective communication so the rider can understand what the trainer wants them to do. Now, sometimes the trainer can tell the rider exactly what to do, but if the horse isn't quite understanding, then the rider at that point has to become the teacher. Because if that horse is not sure what you want them to do, then the rider has to figure out certain ways on how to get the horse to understand. So it kind of works a little tricky with all 3, with the trainer, rider, and the horse. You just want to try your best to know exactly how your rider learns and how the horse that your rider is on learns. So that is very important. Now let's look at the second dynamic of the rider and the horse. So this is without a trainer, or you could be the trainer yourself training the horse. The rider has to communicate effectively with that horse. That rider, it works best if you do know everything about the horse. Obviously, it's easier, but sometimes we don't. If you're getting on a horse for the first time,
This is just when you pull from previous experiences. I call it pull a tool out of your toolbox, because each horse teaches us something new. And when you learn something new, you got to put it in your toolbox and then pull it out whenever you need to. So if you have effective communication with your horse and your horse does exactly what you want it to do, then this will give you that feeling of, again, collectiveness, bravery, certainty, self-confidence, and success. Now, this is when it is important to learn your horse's learning style and know how they best communicate as well. So ineffective communication between rider and horse in turn can cause anxiety, fear, doubt, low self-confidence, and anger. So you might be asking something of the horse and the horse might not understand. I will get to that in the next slide, but just know that it is very important that you do try different ways of communication. So if one way of communication doesn't work, how are you changing? Do you know when to change your communication style at that point? Say, okay, this isn't working, so I'm going to try this. So don't get discouraged if you jump on a horse and you try all this stuff and all these different things and the horse doesn't understand what you're saying. Don't just go straight to feeling bad and angry. Try to figure out instead, okay, this isn't working. What can I try next to get this horse to communicate better with me? Or how can I best communicate with this horse, right? Now let's look at the third dynamic of the horse speaking to the rider. Not many people who are just starting out in the horse world, or who haven't been around horses for a while, know the equine language. And what I mean by that is someone who can look at a horse or get on a horse and know exactly what that horse is thinking, how they are feeling, what kind of mood they're in that day. That's something that develops over time and from working with a lot of horses. So that is super important to us being successful equestrians, because if you can't understand what your horse is telling you, then the relationship will not be successful. So I know for myself as a trainer, I try to get to know my horses as fast as they can, as best as I can. I try to know their every single move, every single mood that they have, what they do when they're in that mood. I mean, just by walking up to their stall, I can tell what kind of day they have. And that is just by spending a lot of time with them. That's not something that happens overnight. So if you're on a horse that you are super comfortable with and you know exactly how they are and you know exactly how they behave, depending on what type of mood they're in that day, then you will get that collectiveness, that bravery, certainty, self-confidence, and success, because that is effective communication. Your horse always talks. They just don't speak. And us as riders and trainers, we have to listen to our horses. Communication goes both ways. It's not just us talking or communicating with the horse. Our horses are also constantly communicating with us. And so if we get to know those horses and what they're saying, then we can respond appropriately. Sometimes your horse might say, hey, I'm really trying to understand what you're telling me. I just don't quite get it. Could you maybe just be a little bit more gentle or show me how to do it a different way? That's when us as riders and trainers have to adjust our approach. So you might think, oh, your horse is being bad, or he's being bad, he's pinning his ears, he's, kind of sulking, he's kind of sucking up if I squeeze him, he doesn't want to go. Well, maybe he doesn't. If your foot position or your leg position is incorrect and your horse is saying, hey, I don't like where your foot is or your leg is on me, can you move it up a little bit? It's a little too far back. Or you might think, oh, my horse is trying to run away. He's grabbing the bit. He's throwing his head up. Maybe your horse is saying, hey, your hand position is hurting my mouth. So we really have to listen to what our horses are telling us. That is super important to listen. That is a part of communication again. So that is our responsibility as a rider and trainer to understand what our horses are telling us. I do have a couple articles on the CBC website that talks about all horses talk, they just don't speak. and the importance of finding that communication and how to speak the equine language so that we can effectively communicate with our horses and our horses can effectively communicate with us. Horses are very smart animals and they know how we are. And when you are around a certain horse all the time, they know all of your moves and you should know all of theirs. And when you know exactly how a horse is and they know how you are, that creates a beautiful partnership. And you should have always collectiveness, bravery, certainty, self-confidence, and success. So if you aren't totally listening to your horse or you might not understand what they're saying, that can give you the causes of anxiety, fear, doubt, low self-confidence, and anger. And if you feel any of those while you are riding, I suggest that you do find a trainer that works for you, that can work with you and your horse to work through these negative emotions, because it is not fun to work with horses and have these negative emotions. You want your time with horses to be nice and beautiful. Yes, it's not always going to be like that. We can have bad days, of course. But if you can help it and if you can seek the help and find that combination of trainer who communicates with you and understands your learning style and your language as well as your horses, then that can blossom into a beautiful thing. So here's just some takeaway questions that I think are good to think about and possibly talk about. Are you communicating in a way that your student and your horse understands? So if you are an owner and you have a horse, you should know how your horse best communicates and understands what you're trying to tell them. If you're a trainer, then you should know how your students learn best and how your horses that you're training learn best. If you are a trainer that has a student and a horse, that the student owns the horse, you should know how both of them best communicate and then be able to effectively get them to communicate together as well. Sometimes horses have people problems. So we may think that horses are being bad and that they aren't listening or not behaving, when in reality, do we ever take a step back and say, hey, is that person or am I not communicating with this horse effectively? Are they not understanding what I'm trying to say? So with the next point I have on here is, how often are you putting your objective before a proper way of communication? What I mean by that is let's just take, for example, you're trying to get your horse to do something, right? And you keep hounding them and you're trying to get them to do it, but they aren't understanding what you're trying to tell them. So when do you take a step back and say, hey, this isn't working. Let me try a different form of communication to try to get it across to this horse, right? So this next bullet point is, what is your student and your horse's learning style? We just touched on that. And the last one, are you noticing when your communication is becoming ineffective and when you need to change methods? So at one point when you are training a student or you are training a horse or both, at one point, do you realize, hey, this isn't working. I need to change my style of training or my method to get to the objective that I want. Because sometimes if you keep doing the same thing and it doesn't work, then yes, you do need to change your method and your style. And this is when experience comes in, and you should have different training styles and methods, because not every horse is the same and not every human is the same. So you have to get your experience in that, in working with different horses and working with different riders, so that you know when to do certain things and what to do for it. Right? So just all around, communication is so important. Learning your horses, learning your students, learning how to speak the equine language and what your horses are telling you, so that we can have effective communication.
Thank you, Brittney, for that presentation. That was fantastic.
You are welcome. Ooh,
there we go.
Hold on. Let me get back on. Oh. Hold on 1 second. There we go.
All right. Yeah, we can see you now. Yeah, so that was great. My favorite part of that was the horse to rider dynamic and understanding, listening to the horse,
Mm-hmm.
and how do you apply what information you're gathering from what they're saying to you.
Mm-hmm.
Have to just be so versatile in that effect, as a trainer
Right.
or as a rider, in just understanding and being able to apply what you have learned to your ride.
Right. Well, a lot of times some people might not know different methods. So what I'll see is they put their objective of what they're trying to get the horse to do. And if their horse is pinning their ears or saying, hey, I don't like that,
Mm-hmm.
then it's like, okay, now we have to determine, are you just being bad and you don't want to do it? Or is it something you genuinely don't like? And that just comes from spending time with your horse, actually getting to know them and know all their moods, just like humans. Horses have moods and they feel certain ways. And what one horse, like, for example, one horse might not like the bit. One might like a hackamore. It's like, oh, a hackamore is a lot more gentle in the mouth. But if they start acting up with a bit, it's like, hey, maybe it hurts their mouth. But if they're perfect with a hackamore, they're just, letting you know. So something simple like that.
Yeah. I think it's very important to be versatile, and
Mm-hmm.
in all aspects of it, and especially when like communicating with a trainer. I know that in my experience with being trained, I guess, I don't like feeling like I'm being yelled at.
Mm-hmm.
It gets me all flustered and stuff, and I'm like, look, if you yell at me, I'm gonna yell at the horse. Like, it stresses me out, so be calm.
Right.
So I feel like, understanding or coming to a consensus on what kind of communication you feel best with
Mm-hmm.
prior to getting on the horse is
Yep.
very important for trainers and their students.
Oh, yes. I'm not sure if we want to go into questions now. We can open the floor if we'd like.
Yeah, if anybody has any questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask, or drop it in the chat box if you don't want to speak.
You can read them out.
It says, is it true when working with horses to not rush, give them time to adjust and understand?
Yes, that is very important, because when it comes to training a horse, you can't put a timeline on them. Each horse, just like us humans, I can't give you a math problem and say in 1 hour you have to understand this whole concept. So we can't expect horses to do that. Horses are going to come around when they, not when they feel like it, but when they get it. So if you go into the arena and let's just say, I'm going to teach my horse flying lead changes today. You can't say by the end of this day, this horse is going to have flying lead changes. It might take you a week. It might take you a month. And the only thing you could do is have patience with that horse. The horse might also, for example, if you're retraining a racehorse, which I've done, several of them, quite a few, they're so used to running towards the left, their body feels weird when they run to the right. And that's not something I could say, hey, you have to have this by the end of the day. It takes a while. So each horse has a different timeline, and you have to work with them on their timeline. And that's when horses teach us patience. So you can try to give them the best tools that they can to be successful. One tool might not work, so you have to switch to a different method, just to say, okay, maybe this will help you along, or this will help you along. Or if this cue doesn't work, then okay, let's try this cue. Mm-hmm. So you definitely not, each horse is different on their own timeline and the methods that you choose. So don't get frustrated if your horse doesn't get it right away. Give them a chance. And if you see that first way isn't working, when that first method of communication isn't working, try a different method. But it does take time sometimes.
Yeah.
I hope that answers the question. I can't see, but you can give a thumbs up or type in the chat if that answers the question.
Yeah, I think it answered the question. That was Gail's question. What was I going to say? And even then, even if it's, not something a horse has learned before, like you said, going to the right, sometimes it's that they were trained a different way. Like
Mhm.
that cue, somebody before them in their past life asked for that cue,
Right.
but they wanted something completely different. So that
Yep.
horse has to acclimate to exactly the result that you are asking for. So
That's so funny. One time I rode a reining horse and I didn't know their cue to back up was to kick in a certain spot. So I was trying to kick to go forward and the horse just flew backwards. I was like, oh, wrong cue. And that's how I found out it was a reining horse. So you're exactly right.
I mean, I guess it changes over discipline.
Yep, it does.
Yeah. Caitlin says, how can I learn from a horse that knows more than me?
Ooh, that is a good one.
That's a good
If
question.
a horse knows more than you, I say, I mean, they're definitely great learning tools, but I would definitely say be with someone who can help you communicate with that horse. So if you are on and that's the only way to learn is to get on a horse that can push those skills and try you. But I would suggest being with a trainer to say, hey, this is a cue for that horse. For example, when I first started learning how to ride race horses, my dad was there helping me with the cues. It was like, oh, this is a whole new beast. So I would encourage someone there who knows how to do it. But if you don't have someone, trust your skills and try to do the best that you can and figure it out along the way. I would definitely try to get consulting in. Like, for example, I had a rider one day. I said, okay, we're going to go ahead and do a flying lead change. She's like, oh, I don't know how to do it. And I said, okay, these are the cues. And what I did actually as her trainer, I got on her horse first so I can see how that horse moves. And then when I got off, I put her back on and I said, okay, this is what you do to get him to do this. So if you have a trainer to do that for you, I suggest that. If not, just trust your skills and try to pull from your toolbox and use the best knowledge that you can, because I understand not everybody can get to a trainer. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, that was a good question. I have another
Yes.
question. Can you discuss fear? Sometimes when I ride, something happens and I suddenly become fearful and freeze up. After that, I'm unable to refocus. Can you give some tips?
When you get flustered while riding, what I always suggest is that we just stop and take a second and reground yourself. So just, if something happens, and how anxiety works, it's like you start thinking of all the problems that can go wrong. So you have to kind of hold your own thoughts accountable and recognize when you're feeling that fear and say, okay, this is what I'm feeling right now. And when that happens, I want you to look at your horse and take into account what your horse is doing. So if you said, oh my goodness, my horse, I feel his energy and I'm starting to get nervous. But if your horse is just strolling along, tune in on to what your horse is doing and try to match that. Because remember, they feel your energy. So if you start to get nervous, or if you start to feel intense, then your horse is going to feel that too. So I can say for myself, I know I don't want to say I'm an aggressive rider, but I definitely have a high energy when I ride. So sometimes I'm like, oh, let me relax so this horse can relax. So if you start to feel fearful or anxiety, they kind of go hand in hand. Just bring your horse down to a walk, relax your shoulders, relax all your muscles. I tell my riders to do a body scan. Do a body scan, just relax, try to get grounded again with your horse. And then just bring yourself back to the present and not the fearful mind state that you have in. That's an exercise, exactly what I do with my riders. I see it a lot when they canter for the first time on one of my horses. He has a huge canter. And then they have to be like, they're like, oh my gosh, I felt like I was going a million miles an hour. And I said, okay, let's just walk. You know what it is now. Reground yourself. And then gather your reins back up or get set to go again. But if you ever feel that, because your horse feels it, you don't want to interrupt that training. So the best thing to do is get yourself regrounded again before you start your next exercise with your horse. So I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, it did. I know from personal experience, I take a gigantic breath, maybe 5 of them. Like with my horse, I've been working on the canter. He's a walking horse, so he's super pacey. Anyway, I've been working on the canter, and before I do that, I take a deep breath and then exhale. I ask for the cue on the exhale, not the inhale, because I feel like in the inhale you're like, but once you exhale it out, it's like, all right, now do whatever.
And what I tell my riders, they probably say it. I say it all the time. I say, relax and go. So like when we're getting ready to go up to a new gate or we're going to do something, I say, all right, and I tell them where we're going to ask the cue at. And I say, okay, relax and go. And then they know that that's the cue. And then you relax and go. I think I see a couple more questions coming in. Good questions, everyone.
Yeah. What advice would you give an older new rider who has some fear of getting injured?
Take your time. Listen to your body and trust yourself. So literally, if you feel, I always ask my riders, communicate. If you're starting to hurt physically, like if you have a muscle soreness or an old injury, definitely communicate that with your trainer. And if you're looking to get a horse, definitely find a horse that might be easy on your joints, something nice and fluffy, like a quarter horse, short and stocky, maybe not a quick little, maybe not an Arabian type body build, but definitely take your time for a walking horse. So definitely take your time and just allow your body to get into riding shape, because you do have to get in shape to ride horses. It is a workout. So allow yourself to gradually build up, maybe start with half-hour riding, maybe do some exercises on your own. There's like exercises you can do at home just to work certain muscles, but just take your time and just try to be as safe as you can. If you're working with a trainer, definitely, I can't stress enough, communicate if something hurts. So that way, I know myself as a trainer, my adult clients, as well as my younger clients, they always let me know when something's hurting. And it might be something as simple as, oh, let's adjust your stirrup. Well, maybe you should relax that muscle more. And then we can work with that and try to make it more comfortable.
I also think it's important to look at your objective, like you said in the presentation. What objective do you have? And to get there, as someone, who may be fearful of getting injured, have these specific goals that you want to get to, so that you know that you're going in a way that'll make it easier for you. It's not like, this is my first time and I want a canter. Like,
right. Yeah. So because sometimes we do have to be really realistic, because each horse is different. Each horse responds different. So just take it one ride at a time, literally one ride at a time, and you should be good.
Yeah. Ashley made a comment, said, yes, in dressage, we have a problem with people buying schoolmaster horses, but the horse ends up being worse because the person doesn't know how to deal with all the new buttons. Definitely.
And that is it. And that's it.
Eye on the ground with those horses.
Because that's the exact phrase where horses have people problems. You ruined a perfectly good horse, and I've seen it done before. And when you ruin a good horse, it's not always fun bringing them back, because they're just like, I am just mad at the world. This person did that. And then they're just angry. And sometimes they can develop bad habits if you turn a good horse bad, and then horses can harp on those habits. And it's like, nope, this is the new me. This is how I am now. And so trying to get them out of those habits, and you have to understand it's kind of a fearful process for them too, because if they don't like it, they don't understand if they're going to have to go back to it. So it's kind of like my dad always tells me this too. He always says, erase and replace. So you got to erase all that bad stuff and then replace it with something good, because horses remember, and they remember what they don't like. So when you ruin a good horse, it's not a good thing. I'll say that. Thanks for bringing that up. Ashley, right?
Yeah.
I can't see everybody on my screen. Okay, good.
Another question. Any tips to help learn your horse better when you don't own the horse but take lessons? Most times I only see my horse once a week.
Ask the trainer or the owner about the horse. I mean, as a trainer myself who sees clients weekly, I tell them everything they need to know about the horse. So don't be afraid to ask questions. Like say, I have one horse that you got to kick a little harder. And then I have one horse who, like, you don't even have to, he'll just go if you just say, all right, you tighten up your reins, and he's already ready to go. So I let all my clients know that about my horses up front, but I would encourage, ask questions. What would happen if I do this? What does he like? Does he need a firmer hand on the bit? Does he like to go soft on the bit? Do I need to kick a little harder? Does he do voice cues? I have a horse that goes, if you just say kick, because she's so used to hearing me say kick, she'll just start to go faster if I say kick. So I have to watch what I do, but definitely ask questions. And then that one time that you spend with the horse, that once a week, really pay attention and think right now or after this, all the moods that you may have seen that horse in. If you have a mare, a girl horse, and she's in season, she can have a bad day. So try to think of all the different moods that you may have seen that horse in. And horses do have off days, and that is okay. But ask questions about the horse, and then just try to take into account all the little tiny things that horse does. Like, for example, I have a horse, I know she gets upset if she's not the first one that's groomed in the morning. She will just melt down. If you groom her first, then she's okay, but that's just how she is. So every little thing, just pay attention to that horse that you can, and definitely ask questions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think another good tip, if you're only seeing them once a week, is to develop a routine. I mean, horses are smart. They know if they like you or not. So they'll, remember this routine with you. But I know with mine, before I start riding, every time, we do this same routine every time. And that gets us both in the mindset, like, okay, here we go. We're about to get into some work. I was lazy. I was eating hay, and now she got me out here. I always do like the same, like this groundwork pattern. And then at the end, I untack them, brush them down, figure out where they like being scratched, figure out what treats and stuff they like. And that way, even if your ride wasn't the best, they know that they have a routine, and they know that the end is going to be positive. So developing that sort of relationship and that routine is also a way, if you only got once a week, that horse is going to kind of know you and know what to expect when they see you.
Yep. That's exactly right.
So, might as what I had to add there. Do we have any more questions or even comments? Anybody else want to?
I think someone just sent one.
Oh, yeah. Do you have suggestions on how to find the right trainer? Good questions to ask, etc. There are so many in my area, and I'm not sure where to begin. I competed growing up, but I've been pretty disconnected from my local horse community in recent years.
I'd say first, know what you want, because there are barns who are like, if you come here, you're going to be traveling around the country showing horses. There's some like mine where it's like, if you want to get to competition level, okay, we can do that. If you just want to be around horses and learn and love on them and just do it as a hobby, I could do that for you too. So I would definitely start with, what do you want to do in your goals? Narrow it down. Do you want to do jumpers, hunters, dressage, reining, roping, cutting? So narrow it down to what your goals are, what your objective is. What style do you want to learn? If you know nothing about it, then just find a barn that might just say, we do just give general horseback riding lessons. And once you find that barn, see if that trainer works for you. Are their horses well behaved? Do you want to be safe? Are their horses well behaved? How do they teach? Is it one-on-one? Is it a group lesson? I know for me, all of my lessons start out private, one-on-one. And then when my riders get to a point where they can handle 2 horses in the arena or multiple horses, then we go there. But I make sure I focus on all of my riders one-on-one first, to make sure they have the skills and the tools needed with my undivided attention. And then when they start to get a little bit better, then I'll bring another horse in. So start with what do you want to do, and what style you want to ride. And then if that one trainer doesn't work for you, then just try to keep trainer shopping until you find the one that is going to reach your needs, and know that that trainer is going to get you where you want to go and give you the results that you want.
Ashley says you can look up USEF as they govern all U.S. equestrian disciplines for competitions in the U.S. For dressage specifically, you can go to the USDF and look up a list of certified trainers. That is key, especially for beginners, as we have too many sham dressage trainers running horses, or maybe ruining horses and riders. Ruining, yeah.
Yep.
I wanted to address the disconnection from the local horse community. I feel like a couple ways that you can get a little bit more connected, and it might help you with your trainer search. Going to shows in the discipline that you want to ride. Going to the feed store, the tack store, you know, these different places where all these horse people hang out, and, you know, just networking and, you know, creating those relationships. Like if you have a trainer in mind, you can just say, hey, you know, do you know about this person? Most likely they do, because the horse world is not that big, and they can, you know, just give you some information like, oh yeah, girl, I love her, or oh God, stay away. You know, you have to take it with a grain of salt because it's people's opinion, but it still will be helpful information, and it'll help you kind of get your face around and kind of feel a little bit more connected to the community, since you hadn't been. I had any advice for learning a new discipline without a trainer, but a horse that is trained in the discipline?
Ooh, so learning a new discipline without a trainer. Can I ask specifically what discipline?
I was just typing that. What discipline?
Are we going total opposite? Can you just tell me what discipline that you're trying to learn, and that you're coming from?
Yeah, I think that's important because
it's. I mean, yeah, because I if you're going from like Western pleasure to show jumpers, it's kind of okay, maybe, but it would help me a little bit answer that question if, I think she just.
Barrels coming from basic Western, and English. Oh, you want to learn barrels coming from basic Western and English.
Okay. Well, if you don't have a trainer, I would definitely probably watch some barrel racing videos online, you know, just to kind of see how it is. If you are, and I know there's different exercises that you can do for barrel racing. So maybe if your horse sees barrels, don't be surprised if he or she gets amped up to see them to go to work. And so just be prepared for that, because horses know their job. So, you know, maybe you could start out with some basic exercises to kind of warm yourself up to it, like trot some barrels or walk the pattern, maybe a slow canter, but just know, don't be surprised if your horse sees barrels. I used to have a barrel horse. That was my my childhood horse. And anytime she saw cows or something, she would just get all amped up and was like, oh, let me go to work. But I would definitely, if you don't have a trainer, find some videos, maybe that, you know, and compare and contrast what seems right and what doesn't seem right. Because there are some people who really know what they're doing and some who don't. Honestly, sad to say that. But I would definitely look up some videos, maybe find some barrel exercises that you can do, and then just take it slow for yourself. And if you have a really good horse, then try to get to know them as well. And I know we just had talked earlier about not ruining good horses. So definitely try to take it slow and maybe look up some videos, or you can, if you find, you know, someone who knows how to run barrels, post on Facebook, ask for some tips.
Yeah. I think like recording yourself, recording what you are doing so you can see what you are doing versus how you feel you are doing something. Right. It might be completely different. So if you record yourself and your workouts or your exercises, and even just visually compare it to your objective, you know, that might be a good way to segue into that.
Right. I just know, like, for me personally, if I had that, I would just, you know, take my horse, maybe canter slowly around a barrel pattern. And then if you don't have a trainer, you'll find make sure you get definitely a barrel saddle, so you're not just sliding off. but, maybe start off trotting the pattern, maybe a slow canter, and then gradually build your way up. If you have a solid base and background and just general basics in riding, it should be somewhat of a smooth transition. If you had a trainer, it'd definitely be easier, but I definitely just start off slow and then work your way up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. See if there's any more. I do not have any more questions, and we have about 5 minutes left. So I just want to say thank you so much for doing this. This was fantastic. Me and Caitlin 100% truly appreciate your time today.
Thank you for having me.
We had so many people on. I hope that you guys learned something today. And if you have any questions, Brittney is about to tell you how to contact her after this is over.
Well, I think I might be able to share my website with you. You can feel free to shoot me an email. My name is on the screen. You can add me on Facebook, and, feel free to do that. My website is, I think I can bring it up, it's cbcequine.com. And my email is, actually, would it help if I typed it in the chat? Let me type it in the, okay. And cbcequine, hold on. Let me do it to everyone. cbcequine@gmail.com. It's in the chat. I just put it there, and I'll put my name. You can add me on Facebook. And I have my business page on there. I'm pretty, you can message me, email me, check out. And on my website also, I do have a blog and a discussion forum for members. So a lot of my blogs and articles that I've written kind of relate to what we talked about today. So if you go to my website, which is in the chat, and you click on the members tab, you can become a member. And there are some discussion questions there that we could just all talk about together. So I checked that, and I think I just put up a new one a few days ago. So feel free.
And it's free.
Yeah, it's free. I just wanted to create a brave place for us to go to that us equestrians can talk about stuff, and it doesn't have to be all on blast, like, oh, everybody can see it. But it's healthy to have those discussions, to know you're not alone. I've been on horses that I've been like, oh my gosh, this is a lot of horse. And then I had to rise to the occasion, so we've all had experiences, and just know, everyone gets nervous. Even jockeys before a race get nervous. It's natural. So don't be afraid. And we're all here to help each other. And I think that's why Aubriana and Caitlin put on this clinic, to know that you're not alone, and it's okay. And no one's looking down on you. And I'd rather see you ask for help than go out there and try to figure it out yourself and look crazy. Mm-hmm. So if you say, hey, I don't know how to do this. Mm-hmm. So my dad has always been my trainer. When I have a question, I'm like, Dad, how do I do this? Even if it's something so simple, like, I'm just like, how do I do it? Tell me how to do it. And I'd rather you ask, especially so you don't get hurt and for safety. And so I if you don't know something, definitely ask, because horses can be dangerous. Mm-hmm. So just, if you think you're going to sound crazy, say, no, I'd rather be safe, or I don't want to ruin my horse. So if you have any tips, let me know. Definitely ask questions. And if you can get the help versus just going on and try to figure it out yourself, because you don't want to ruin your horse and you don't want to get hurt.
April, what is that you just did? Is that a hand clap? Are you
Yeah, I got a hand clap.
Yeah. Hold on, let me unmute you. Wait, I'll do it. There you go.
Okay. I am technically challenged. Now you can hear all my dogs. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
I'm technically challenged. So I was trying to figure out how to type you guys to tell you how amazing this is and how I am so blessed that I got to be a part of this. And I adore, I'm in awe. This is so amazing. So thank you, Caitlin and Aubriana and Brittney. This was awesome.
You are so welcome.
You so much.
So I was trying to figure out how to go like that, but I'll just do it.
Oh, that was clapping. You got it.
Well, Well, thanks everybody. I saw some more comments in the chat, more virtual meetups. Make sure you show up tomorrow. We have Ashley Nash coming on. She is a mental health professional. She's not a horse person, but she is going to definitely get us into the mindset of clarity when it comes to what we want out of our horses and what our goals are kind of overall, you know? So it's a little bit of a twist, but it's definitely something that you don't want to miss, because we're definitely going to dive deep into that conversation and do some little group chats and things like that. So I will see y'all tomorrow.
Thanks again, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.
All right. You guys have a good night. Bye.